Here we go. Hi everybody. Video number 3, the shortest of our videos. The next one will be our longest. I hate to tell you that. But the good news is this will be shorter. So this is going to be just about the 6-step guide, which again, hopefully you've already read pages 15 through 32 in your textbook, so you have some familiarity with it. Also, if you have your computers, well, obviously you probably do have your computers because you're watching this video, but if you go into Canvas, our Canvas class, and go to the announcements, there's an announcement that says handy short form 6-step guide for your speeches. I put this into the announcements to just give you a quick reference. I will tell you, all of my speeches, all of my talks are some form of the 6-step guide now, wherever I am in the marketplace. Because I find it's a really useful way to give people a roadmap to go through your speech. People want a roadmap. Audiences want a roadmap of where somebody is going. They want to know what you're doing. They want to be told what to expect. They even want to know when they're supposed to be listening closer. Audiences love instruction from the public speakers. There's no such thing as a good public speaker who says, well, my content's just so good, I'm going to go up there and wing it and not have any organization, it'll be fine. It just doesn't work. Don't tell yourself that lie. Have some organization, and this is absolutely the best organization for public speeches that I've ever found. I teach this I teach it at Grand Canyon University. I taught it at Fuller when I was teaching graduate classes there. I teach it around town in different seminars. I love the 6-step guide. I have it memorized. I organize everything by it. It's even a good way to think about how to organize your research papers and stuff. In fact, I will tell you, AI, ChatGPT, organizes their material this way as well. So, now, none of you would ever use ChatGPT, I'm sure, to come up with speech material, so I'm so glad that you're not doing that. I actually have a ChatGPT grading rubric that knows if you've used ChatGPT. Isn't that cool? Anyway, I'll let you decide whether or not that's true. Here we go. You want to start with an excite step. The excite step is like an attention getter. So an excite step can be a short video. So, by the way, let me just say this about videos as an excite step. If your speech is 5 to 7 minutes long and your excite step video is 3 minutes, you're in trouble right out of the gate. Don't do that. Your video should be, 30 seconds at the most. But a lot of people will use a video as their excite step. That's a great idea, depending on whatever speech it is that they're giving. On my informative speech on how to prepare for and run your first marathon, I have a short video of a guy running a marathon, finishing a marathon in Australia, and he is 10 meters from the finish line, and he falls down on his hands and knees because he's so worn out from the race, trying to get there under 3 hours, which is a big, a massive accomplishment to run a marathon under 3 hours. And he's so close that he's on his hands and knees for a while, and then he collapses down to the ground, and he actually rolls across the line in order to be able to finish it. I show that as my excite step, and then at the end I show a video of people happily crossing the finish line at a marathon with all kinds of energy left over, and that's how you need to prepare for your marathon. Anyway, excite steps can be videos. They can be a quote, a famous quote. I've had informative speeches as well as tribute speeches on Muhammad Ali. And it's interesting how often an informative speech, or the tribute speech for that matter, the excite step is somebody will stand up and say, floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee. Who said it? And if you know anything about Muhammad Ali, that's his most famous poetry quotation. Ali was not only a great boxer, but he was also into writing poetry. And that was his iconic way of describing himself. So you can have a quote. There are various things that you can do. You can ask a rhetorical question. If you're giving an informative speech, for instance, on the fitness center at Paradise Valley Community College, you might start by saying, hey, do any of you use the fitness center here at Paradise Valley Community College? Let me see a show of hands. Boom! Attention getter. Excite step. you've got their attention. Here's the definition of an excite step. Very important to understand this definition. The excite step's job is to transition your audience from what they are thinking about to now thinking about your speech. Does that make sense? So, your excite step should also somehow be related to your topic. Don't do that thing where you get up and you tell a completely unrelated joke and then you go into your speech. That's not effective. Even if you get the audience to laugh, it's not effective. You need an excite step that is topic related, okay? I will tell you, when I was teaching beginning speech at GCU 28 years ago, I had a guy give a demonstration speech, a student give a demonstration speech on how to outfit your car for safety, for any eventuality that you might run into as you're driving somewhere. And one of the things he said that you need to have in your car is a couple of flares so that you can get traffic diverted if something happens, okay? So his excite step was, he had a table next to him, and he had a 5-gallon painting bucket from Home Depot, a white one, filled halfway up with sand, and he started his speech inside the Fleming Classroom building at GCU by busting open a flare, lighting a flare, and holding it up. So it's going, and that sulfuric smell is going, the smoke is going, and immediately he jams it into the sand that he has in the bucket. The problem is that the flare did not go out when he jammed it into the bucket. It reignited, and as he's continuing with his speech, he looks down and sees that it had reignited, so he grabs the flare and he starts jamming it in, and the flare simply will not go out. Now, smoke is billowing out, it's filling the room, it's that terrible acrid smell, and he's jamming it, and then his hand slips down on the flare and actually burns himself a little bit on the flare. I know. He thought it was funny too, so I can laugh at it. And finally, I just said, all right, everybody out, because it was just too much smoke. And we grabbed a bucket, took it outside, and we got the flare doused and taken care of. But when we opened the door, the entire hallway of the Fleming Classroom building was filled with the smoke, and somebody had called the fire department. Yes, my class was responsible for shutting down all classes the rest of the day in the Fleming Classroom building. I'm very proud of that moment. So that would be an example of an excite step you should not use. It got everybody very excited, but he wasn't able to give the rest of his speech. He did tell me that he practiced it 5 times at home, and each of the 5 times the flare went out. So 6 times the charm, I guess. Anyway, excite step. Then you go into your launch step. Your launch step has 3 components to it. You need to introduce your topic. Give us a purpose statement or your thesis. A purpose statement would be for your autobiographical, informative, and tribute speeches. Your persuasive speech would have more of a thesis statement. But you need to just state the purpose. Today, my purpose is to introduce myself to you and help you get to know me a little better. Boom, done. You've introduced your topic. My purpose today is to help you understand how to train for and prepare and pick your first marathon that you're going to run. Boom, done. Today, I want to convince you that we need to do something about immigration, whatever that is. I have a plan and a policy that's going to allow immigration to happen, but in a much more organized fashion, whatever that is. Okay, that's more of a thesis statement for a persuasive speech. Today I want to tell you about one of the greatest movie directors and my personal favorite movie director in Hollywood, Michael Mann. There you go. Then you preview your main points. Preview your main points. So the peanut butter speech. This was I was giving this at I was teaching this class at a graduate school. So this woman was a retired captain from the Army. She was 53 years old, and she had just retired from the Army, and she was now working on a master's degree. Her speech was the peanut butter speech. She said, I am going to tell you about the history of peanut butter within these confines because they're the most important confines. I'm going to tell you about the history of peanut butter and how it really got started during World War II. Then we're going to transition and talk about how That led to an explosion of peanut butter as a consumer product in the 50s and 60s. And then we'll talk about peanut butter today and what's going on in the world of peanut butter today. That's your preview. Then, number 3, you have to establish credibility. Why are you telling us about this? Well, I go to the Arizona Equine and Agricultural School. I've been around horses all my life. That's why I'm going to talk to you about barrel racing, whatever that is. Okay, so your credibility. A credibility statement. I had one guy give a speech, again, at the graduate school. He had been a residential home real estate appraiser for 16 years. And he said, I'm going to tell you how to do an appraisal on your own home. And I have 16 years experience in this business. That's a credibility statement. Here you go. Credibility statement. I did 8 hours of research on this topic. That's credibility statement. Okay? The peanut butter credibility statement was fun. She said, I'm 53 years old. I've been eating peanut butter for at least 50 years. I know what I'm talking about. That's a credibility statement. Okay? Then you move into your relate step. So the credibility statement is, why are you qualified to speak on this? The relate step is why would your audience want to listen to you? Why is it important to the audience? So you have to say, you probably either eat a lot of peanut butter or you're allergic to it. Wouldn't you like to know the history of it? There's a relate step. If you're a homeowner, wouldn't you like to be able to figure out the approximate appraised value of your home before you go to the bank and ask for a loan, at least giving you some idea whether or not you have a shot at the loan? There's a relate step. All of you eventually will probably, research shows, have on your bucket list of life finishing a marathon. So I'm going to tell you how to prepare for a marathon. Relate step. Many of you have seen Michael Mann movies and maybe don't even realize that he was the director or the screenwriter in the movie. So I'm going to tell you about Michael Mann. So those would be relate steps. Then you have your main points. Main point 1, peanut butter during World War II, peanut butter in the meals ready to eat. So you talk about that. She talked about that. Then you have a transition statement. Hello, transition statements are really important. You need to know what a transition statement is and how to use it and why they're important. The audience wants to know that you're done with that part of the speech and you're moving on to a new part of the speech. Here's what a transition statement does. It reviews quickly in one sentence what you've already talked about and then lets the audience know what you will talk about next. So I've told you about peanut butter getting placed on the palates of millions of people during World War II, and how that will now transition and translate into the fact that it became a huge consumer product during the 50s and 60s as the military people came back to the United States and started looking for peanut butter on the shelves. And so then she goes into that. After main point 2, there's another transition statement into main point 3. So I've told you about how peanut butter got its start in meals ready to eat during World War II, and I've told you about how that has translated into peanut butter becoming a huge consumer product in the 50s and 60s. Now let's talk about peanut butter today. And so she talks about, how, all the different kinds of peanut butter and the way peanut butter is presented, the way peanut butter is now getting, it's like cranberry juice. It's getting into other things. You have peanut butter cookies, peanut butter pie, peanut butter ice cream. That chocolate ice cream with the peanut butter pieces in it, it's really good. Peanut butter and chocolate candy. You got peanut butter going at peanut butter pasta. I made that up. But at any rate, you get the idea. So peanut butter everywhere. And then she transitions into her reiterate step. Your reiterate step is your preview step, which is part of your launch step, only in reverse. Now you're saying, okay, so preview step. I'm going to tell you about peanut butter during World War II, 50s and 60s, and peanut butter today. Today, I've told you about the history of peanut butter. We talked about it, how peanut butter got it started during World War II. We then transitioned into talking about how peanut butter exploded as a consumer product in the 50s and 60s. And then we talked about peanut butter today. That's your reiterate step. Doesn't take very long, very easy. I'll stop here and say this. A common way to talk about effective public speaking is this very simple statement. Tell the audience what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. If you can at least keep that in your mind, you will be way ahead of the game. But that's essentially what we're doing here. But then the energize step, you need to be able to tie a bow on your speech. You need to have a closing statement, a closing video, a closing quote, something like that. Some of the Muhammad Ali speeches I've had have had more serious philosophical quotes at the end of the speech instead of floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. And so you need a way to kind of tie everything together with your energize step. Some people call this the memorable statement. Here you go. One of the best energize steps I've ever experienced in my life was the history of the peanut butter informative speech. What she did was she bought those individual snack containers that contain 4 Nutter Butter peanut butter sandwich cookies in each. She bought 20 of those and passed them out to every person in the audience, including me. That's like an automatic A when you get 4 free Nutter Butter peanut butter sandwich cookies. So anyway, I just hope nobody was allergic to peanuts in that audience. I don't think anybody was. So that's your 6-step guide. Very important to do all of your speeches this way. It's worth a lot of your points, including your rough drafts. And I have this note in here under the main points, and I want to reiterate this. For your autobiographical speeches, you must use the 3 main points given in the textbook: your personal life, your educational life, and your professional life. For your informative speech, you can use 2 to 7 main points, but generally 3 main points is good. But you can use 2 or 5 if you want. For your persuasive speech, you must follow the guidelines in the textbook and have 7 main points. Follow those 7 main points for your persuasive speech. And then for your tribute speech, 3 main points usually works best. Here you go, here's an example. The person's young life growing up, the person's educational life, and then the person's vocational life. Very, very similar to your autobiographical speeches. That's what I do with Michael Mann. And I insert all kinds of interesting information in the midst of that outline. So that would be our 6-step guide video. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, I'm glad I checked this. I want to make sure you understand about the reiterate and energize parts of the speech. Never introduce new material into the last 2 steps of the 6-step guide. If you realize during your reiterate or energize step that you forgot something from your main points, don't go back and try to cover it. Just keep going. It's kind of like if any of you have been in drama, in theater in high school or even now at PVCC, you know that if you miss a line, you're not supposed to go back and try to make it up. You just keep going. Because generally the audience isn't going to know that you missed a line. We'll know that you screwed up the main points if you try to re-include that information in your reiterate and energize steps. So don't introduce new material in the summary, conclusion, or last 2 steps of your speech. So that's your 6-step guide. We're going to move on next to the last video, video 4, which is just basic tips and helpful information about public speaking that will be a lot of what your first quiz will be over. All right? Bye-bye now.